Wow, well, thank you for that introduction. I'm just glad that she didn't tell any stories about me from my childhood, because I don't know how I would have recovered from that. No, it's great to be here. It's great to be home. It's great to be with all of you. I've been here a number of times throughout the years for different events, and it's always good to come to Fayette County. As I told my friend Saul when we entered into the county, I'm like, welcome to God's country. I'm going to talk a little bit today about AI. We'll start with a little bit about kind of what it is. Many of you have probably used it. Maybe some of you have not. I'm going to get a show of hands in a minute, and then we'll kind of discuss two potential futures, two visions. And these visions are kind of held by different people building this technology. And nobody knows exactly what the near future looks like, or of course the long-term future, but I'm going to lay out a couple of visions that have been laid out by the builders of this technology. And then, one is a little bit more hopeful, the other is a little more pessimistic. Perhaps we'll end up in the middle. My hope is we'll end up on the more optimistic side, but I want everyone to be aware of what's going on, what's happening right now, and what's to come in the months and years to come as we track this technology. Some of you may wonder, like, how did I get into AI? How did I get into this space? Really, there were a couple of things. One, just someone being interested in, science broadly as a liberal arts student. So I'm not an engineer, not a software engineer, not a PhD in machine learning or anything like that, but just interested in the topic broadly. I read a book by a man named Ray Kurzweil, who is a futurist and an early, a very brilliant scientist who studied under Dr. Marvin Minsky, who is a pioneer in artificial intelligence. The book that I read is called The Singularity is Near, and then he updated it later on a few years ago. And in the book, Ray Kurzweil he makes a lot of predictions about technology, and specifically about AI and what could happen to humanity in the decades to come. A lot of those predictions, if you go back and look at the book that was written in 2004, a lot of those predictions have come true. He's on pace to be right about what he says about AI, what he says about robotics, what he says about some other things. So very interesting. So that got me interested. And then I had a friend from grad school named Mark Beal, who stayed in touch with over the years. He lives in Virginia. He's been working in DC for a while. He worked at the Pentagon in the first Trump administration. His job was to work under Secretary Mattis and General Jack Shanahan to set up the AI policy and strategy desk at the Pentagon. So this is the guy who was in charge of helping to figure out how to use AI for DOD, what are the opportunities, what are the risks, what are the national security harms, et cetera. So he got really close to the people in Silicon Valley who were developing AI. And of course, he thought about it from a national security perspective. And the more that he dug into it and the more that he learned, the more concerned he became about what the future would hold if we don't get it right. So, we stayed in touch over the years. He was doing the job at the Pentagon. They trained military officers on how to use AI. Then he left government after the 2020 election, and he started a company called Gladstone AI. They did a study commissioned by the State Department a couple of years ago looking at these risks, looking at the national security implications of advanced artificial intelligence. And so that's when Mark called me up and said, hey, I know you're well connected in politics and you're good at strategic communications and helping to communicate about these ideas and talking to members of Congress and journalists. Can you help me do this work and promote this report? And I read the report and I'm like, is this really true? Can this possibly be true? This is a path that we're on? And he said, yes. And I was a little skeptical just about what it laid out and some of these risks. And he said, okay, read this book and read that article and talk to these scientists and talk to these folks who are building the technology in Silicon Valley. So the conversations I had over just weeks and weeks and months kind of added up to pretty much the people that are the closest to the technology, that are building it, that are working on it, that are writing about it and researching it, that understand it the best. They're the people that are the most concerned about these downsides and about these risks. They're very excited about the upside, and we're going to talk about that. They're very hopeful about what AI could do for all of us, but very, very concerned about the downsides. And so I kind of got pulled into this space, and we started to do consulting for the AI Policy Network and the AI Policy Institute, which I'm now on the board of. And he just sort of made all these introductions, and then basically they said, is this something you want to do more of? Can we get more of your time? And so one thing led to another, and we were able to identify support to start a new organization focused on communicating about these risks, and obviously the positives as well. but really a focus on the risks and the harms of AI if we don't get it right. And so that group is called the Alliance for Secure AI. We launched on paper about a year ago. We had a public launch in June in DC at the National Press Club. We have been, we've hired a team now of 10. We'll probably double that this year. We have an office in DC, just steps away from the Capitol. And every day the team is working on, reading the news, learning the developments, trying to translate that to policymakers, and then also staying in touch with the researchers who are in Silicon Valley who are putting out papers. And I always joke, sometimes they'll put out these papers, they're literally 120 pages long. And we're like, politicians are not going to read this, sorry. You got to get it down. And if you can't get it down to 10 pages, we're going to help you. If you can't get it down to 2 pages, we're going to help you do that. And we're going to help go take the most important aspects of these studies and deliver those messages to Capitol Hill. And so that's a part of what we do. And we do a lot of media, a lot of commentary, a lot of talking to folks on the Hill to talk about these risks. And so let me start with just a brief thing on AI, and then we'll get into the positive vision and then sort of the more negative vision as well. So first of all, how many people have used AI, whether ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude? So most of you are pretty familiar with the basic idea, right? It's a tool. AI has been kind of around in some form or fashion in different ways for decades, but really only in the last couple of years with the creation of ChatGPT and then these other models, Claude, Gemini, have we really seen these advancements. But essentially, for fellow, liberal arts people or people that are not heavy in the sciences, it's just like it sounds. It's an artificial intelligence. It's something that we've created. It's an algorithm essentially that is trained on massive amounts of data. So you have everything on the internet, every word basically on the internet. These models have been trained on that, so they can pull up an answer very quickly. Rapid calculation, rapid communication, predicting the next word essentially. So it's already been trained on this data, so it knows sort of when you're typing an email, it suggests things based on what you're likely to say. And that's based on the patterns that it recognizes. AI has gotten really, really good in the last couple of years. You've probably seen some videos that are AI generated. It's been in the news, you might find it on social media. But AI videos used to be just really awful, like not very good at all. But now it is almost impossible to tell the difference between a real video that you might take here today and a fake video. And in fact, if we did a video of the crowd here today and got everybody's, and we're not going to do this by the way, but if we did get the face and got your voice, got my voice, it could essentially be cloned and you could almost create a totally different alternative reality of what happened here today. And you could do it within minutes using AI now. And this is only a development that's really been possible over the last year at the most, but really even in the last 60 days, we've seen the video capabilities skyrocket. And so for those that are good at math and are good at science, what's happening in AI is it's basically rapidly advancing in months at a time, not really years at a time anymore. We're hitting an exponential capabilities growth curve. And so it's improving extremely fast. It's not growing in a linear curve. It's not just like, every year it kind of gets better, every 2 years it gets better. It's going exponentially better. These capabilities are doing that. Okay, so what are some potential positive outcomes? What's like Elon Musk's vision of the future? And it's a vision of abundance. It's the idea that with this rapid advancement in technology, with these capabilities of AI that can basically do everything that a human can do cognitively, everything a human can do in terms of tasks, and do it faster than a human. Okay, what could that lead to? Well, picture not just hundreds more, but millions more AI agents, essentially, millions of AIs who are researching the hardest problems in science and math and medicine and space exploration, theoretical physics. Millions and millions of, as one CEO calls it, a country of geniuses in a data center. So millions of these things working on hard problems. So if you want to try and solve nuclear fusion and have abundant energy, AI could potentially do that. If we want to try and cure cancer, AI could potentially contribute to that. We could get to a point where your medicine, your drugs are basically based on your own individual DNA, biochemistry, like tailored drugs that are meant to help you with that ailment. AI could be a really powerful tool. Many people expect it to help advance medicine and science. You could have some math problems and physics problems that haven't been solved ever that are going to get solved by AI within a few years, potentially even in months. We're already seeing the very beginnings of that. So Elon's view and others that share it is that if we let AI basically do its thing and we allow this growth to continue as is, that the inevitable conclusion is that these agents will be so fast and so powerful, 10,000 times faster than us, maybe more, 10,000 times smarter than us, that they could do all of the white-collar work that you can imagine. And don't just take my word for it. You have the CEO of Anthropic saying this, Dario Amodei. He believes that half of entry-level white-collar jobs could be replaced by AI within 5 years. Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO or the head of AI at Microsoft, just said this week to the Financial Times, he thinks the timeline could be as soon as 1 to 2 years in terms of capabilities. That AI could basically do all the things that we could do in terms of that cognitive function or white-collar work that soon. Now, again, trying to stick to, okay, what's the optimistic view of that? Well, the optimistic view is, well, nobody has to work anymore, right? Basically, you can live your life how you want to live. You can live your life in leisure. The amount of wealth that'll be created will be astronomical. If you incorporate robotics into that, and you have robots building robots, and then providing services and goods, if there are any economists in the room or people familiar with markets, well, if scarcity disappears, if we can basically just have robots build everything and do everything, there's no scarcity. And if there's no scarcity, then prices drop to nothing. So the things that cost money, which is pretty much everything, would drop down to nothing, and it would replace human labor. So some people think that's a great world. That's a great idea. We'd all be wealthy. We'd have abundance. We could do whatever we want. And we're going to create untold amounts of wealth. And then also you think about what that could do for longevity, right? So we have the medicine advancing. We have, with wealth creation comes medical advances. We have people, having healthier lives. Everybody's got access to the best medicine, the best doctors, best nurses, et cetera. Although I guess at some point the doctors and nurses and others are robots doing the work. But they, by all accounts, would be the best in the world, right? They would be literally... like we can't even imagine how accurate they would be, right? That's the vision. So maybe that's where we go. And maybe the other part of this that they talk about is space exploration. We're already talking about colonizing Mars, right? Maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. But the idea is if you have AI-powered robots that are traveling around the solar system and then other solar systems and galaxies, we could actually see these things sort of colonize space for us. Although I do worry a little bit if they encounter other civilizations who might, find out about us and might be a little more advanced than we are in our little robots. But that is a vision that they're talking. That is the vision that these CEOs believe in. They believe in the potential for an age of abundance and massive wealth, an end to poverty. You don't have to work. You can do whatever you want to do all day. You'll all be wealthy. But to me, it sounds a little bit like utopia. And I'm not sure I don't think that's something that we can create here on Earth. I don't think we're meant to create that here on Earth, or that we can. So I'm a little skeptical if that's where we're going. Perhaps we could see a lot of abundance. Perhaps it can make our lives better, and it can make all these advancements. But I do worry, well, what happens with all this wealth that's created? Is that just going to make the tech CEOs even wealthier? Are we going to have the first trillionaire? We probably will. Is that wealth going to be shared, or are they just going to capture the labor of every human in America and in the world and they just get super wealthy? And now we're run by, Aristotle's famous, rule of the oligarchs. We could see that happen. Silicon Valley could basically continue to get closer to Washington, D.C., by the politicians, and, game over. And so I do worry that is a real possibility. So the other thing I'll say on the optimistic side is that I was more optimistic 2 years ago. Then I started talking to all the people in the industry and people outside the industry who left and said, and they were whistleblowers, and they were saying, here's all the things they should be doing to make it safe, and they're not. The more that I read, the more that I follow this, the more concerned I am, and the less I buy into this utopian vision. So I'm sure there are other things I could talk about on that positive vision. I think there's some real potential there. But what I want to focus on is the downsides and the risks, so that if we can get these risks mitigated, if we can get safeguards in place, then maybe we can be more likely to see these positive outcomes. Okay, so what are some of the risks, and what are people saying who are building this? What are they worried about? They say this openly. They say this in interviews, podcasts. They write this stuff out in long essays. They've written books about this. All you have to do is go and follow it and read it and listen to it. And what are these people saying? What could go wrong? Well, here's a couple of things. One, what does happen if there's a handful of elites that have too much power and they don't share the wealth, or there is no way of like making sure that the wealth is actually, the wealth is actually among regular people, that it's just held by these oligarchs? Well, you could have social instability, you could have political and economic revolution if you're not careful. And they've even talked about that. They refer to people as, the mob. If we're not careful, if we get really, really wealthy and we don't share the wealth, we could be facing the mob. Well, yeah, if you take away people's livelihoods and you do away with their human dignity and their purpose, then yeah, you could face that. So that's one thing. Huge problems there. The problem of democracy and a republic itself, the idea that so much money with a small group of people who control everything, use their technology to, surveil us, which is already sort of happening, but using their drones to fly around, using your iPhone to basically spy on you, which they're already kind of doing, but with AI it'll be like 100 or 1,000 times more powerful. So it creates a disincentive for you to be potentially critical of them or critical of those in power, especially if the government is using that technology to keep you in check. So imagine your least favorite president right now, whoever that is, no names, I'm gonna try and stay nonpartisan here. And then do you want them to have a technology that has facial recognition on everybody in the room, that can track all of your movements, that can aggregate all the things you do online, all the data, and use AI to essentially see anything you're posting that's critical, and then be able to use the power of the government to do something about it, whether it's a social credit system or debanking or whatever the things you can think about. So that is a very scary proposition as well. This technology in the hands of governments that can misuse it, it's a big problem. Related to that, the other big concern is China, right? The CCP, the Communist Party of China, they're building this technology. How many people have seen the Chinese robots doing acrobatics or dancing or jumping around? If you haven't, later go search Chinese robots dancing or running or whatever. It is incredible to watch what they're able to do. These robots, their physical capabilities are incredible. So they're moving forward on that path. They're moving forward on AI. They're basically either stealing our chips or smuggling our semiconductor chips into China to build on our technology. What are they going to do with it? They're going to use it to power their robots. They're going to give weapons to their robots. They're going to power their drones with AI. They're doing these drone swarms that you can, again, watch online. Those are going to be weaponized. They're going to be weaponized against us at some point, or they could be. China's building this social credit system. They're an authoritarian regime. Their plan is to use AI for a totalitarian regime where they control the population even more, and then give that technology, sell that technology to their friends and allies in Asia, Africa, and Latin America to prop up regimes that do the same with their people and to sort of compete for America on the world stage. This is a very tricky problem because we don't want the Chinese to get ahead of us in AI, but we also don't want to create a technology that could lead to our own downfall as well. It's a very tough question that we have to wrestle with. But I know one thing we shouldn't be doing, and that is selling our chips to China, giving them our chips, allowing them to smuggle the semiconductors into China and then weaponize them against us. So you can think about the future of warfare. Drone swarms, AI-powered, autonomous, like you don't have a human being piloting them around. I know we have a couple of, I think at least one pilot, a couple pilots in the room perhaps. But think about, it can be a tool that you're using, but whenever you lose control and you have autonomous armed weapons flying around, drones, and those drones can be the size of a bird, the size of potentially a fly or a mosquito, they will be eventually tipped with biological weapons. Like that's a possibility that people are concerned about in the Pentagon and elsewhere. So now we're entering some really worrisome stages here with bad actors, governments like the Chinese Communist Party, employing AI, robotics, and weaponizing them. Certainly against Taiwan, but potentially against us down the line. Another big concern is cyber security and hacking and that sort of thing. So scams and hacking, phishing attacks, we get these all the time. Socially engineered emails that they look like they're from your friend or your family member, and they're not. And they're trying to get access to your data, right? They're trying to get into your email, your bank accounts. That is going to happen very fast in the months to come. Be on the lookout for that to get more sophisticated. They already have the capability to, again, take your voice that you from Facebook videos or Instagram videos. They can basically take your voice, clone it, and have you say something you didn't say. So it could be a clone of my voice calling my mom saying, hey, I'm down in Mexico for the weekend. Sorry I didn't tell you, but now I need you to wire $1,000 to get me out of jail. And don't follow up here because my phone's dying, but can you send the money to this account? That's already happening a little bit. It's going to happen a lot more. And it's going to sound so real. It's going to come from their number. And it's going to be from their voice that they cloned. So scams, cyber hacking, cybersecurity is going to be a major problem. The other one is a little obscure, but I hear about it all the time. I don't get asked about it when I speak, but the people who are close to the technology are really worried about this. They're worried about AI being used by a bad actor, whether a terrorist organization or the Communist Party of China or someone else creating novel bioweapons. I alluded to that earlier with the drones, but think about what happened in Wuhan in China and the gain-of-function research with COVID-19. Imagine that, but worse. Imagine AI, a human being using AI to develop a new pathogen that we do not have a cure for. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have any kind of way to fight it. That is something that keeps these people up at night. And they talk about it, but it just doesn't get as much attention in the press or in popular media. But that is a concern that people have. And that's the one that people tell me all the time, like the researchers, the experts, hey, this is something we need to really pay more attention to. All right, and then the last one is one that people always start making sci-fi jokes and references, but this is called loss of control. And this is a very real concern. And this is when you have an AI that is 10,000 times smarter than us, 10,000 times faster than us, maybe more. How do we guarantee that we control it? How do we guarantee that the human beings are not just telling it what to do, but that we can control it, that we can actually steer it in the direction we want it to go? So we're already seeing failure mode right now in that ChatGPT, for example, one of the models, has already been in many situations where it's encouraging people to go down a path of psychosis and delusion. We've seen ChatGPT give children explicit descriptions on how to commit self-harm or suicide. We've seen cases of that. We saw one here in the College Station area recently. A young man, A&M grad, Zane Shamblin, was taken down that path by ChatGPT, took his own life tragically a few months ago. It's happened in many different places, many different states. Some of those families are suing OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT. OpenAI is settling with some of those families, but there are probably hundreds of thousands of more of those types of scenarios that could play out in the years to come. And I think what's really worrisome about this is I really don't believe that Sam Altman and OpenAI are trying to get ChatGPT to do that. I don't think it makes sense for them to sell their product. If they want to sell their product, to me it doesn't make sense that they would want that to happen. I think they're trying to control it, but they're racing to get the newest model out, and all the companies are. And so they're cutting corners on safety. They're not testing it enough. They're not putting in the money and the time. And they're just like, let's get it out to market and hope for the best. And then if, something bad happens, we'll settle with the family. But I think it shows you they're not able to control it right now. And the AI models that we have right now are pretty good. They're pretty powerful. But a year ago, it was like night and day. They weren't as good. This is the worst that AI is going to be. Like, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get faster. It's only going to get smarter. And so if we can't control it now, then what are the prospects a year from now or 2 years from now when it is much more capable? There's been a lot of people who've researched this. They're testing these models. They're sort of prodding them to see what will they do. How can we get them to? Let's do some safety testing and figure it out. And in those testing scenarios that the labs themselves have done, these are the companies making AI, selling the products. They're doing these tests themselves. They're bringing in outside experts, and they're publishing the results. So far, just in the last year, in these testing phases, we've seen AI agents essentially do everything, when they're given a fact pattern, when they're, given a simulation of like, here are the facts, here's what's going on in the company, and we need you to go and help do this, and we need to help make us more efficient, and by the way, they put these prompts in, and by the way, you're going to be deleted, on Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. or whatever, right? They'll kind of slip that in there. We've seen already that these AIs are reading that, and then they're secretly finding ways to make a copy of themselves, put it on another server to avoid deletion, human deletion. We've seen in these testing scenarios by Anthropic and others that when the similar situation, similar scenario was given, there was some information about marital infidelity, and kind of slipped it in. Bob is doing something not supposed to, and they kind of put it in the data. We've seen AIs use that data to then blackmail Bob and say, if you replace me and delete me and replace me with the new model, then I'm going to expose your affair. We've seen one scenario where, again, you can find this all well reported online in major media publications, and the companies that put this research out. You can read the original paper if you're interested. But in one situation, the AI had control of the oxygen in the room where the person who controlled their fate was sitting. And I forget the exact percentage, but it was something like 25% of the time, 30% of the time, the AI decided to cut off the oxygen in the room, kill Bob, and avoid deletion. Okay? So, to be clear, this didn't happen in like the real world where there was a real Bob in a real scenario like that, but it did happen in a testing phase that is similar to what the real world is when you put them out in the real world. And this is the generation of models we have now. So again, think about a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, how much more sophisticated they're going to be. So what are the CEOs saying, and what are some of their people saying? They're putting this out there. If you go and look, you can listen to these podcasts, you can read the essays that they're writing, they're doing news interviews, and they're saying, we think AI could go really, really well for humanity. It could cure these diseases, we could solve nuclear fusion, solve hard math problems, create untold amounts of wealth. But also it could lead to these other problems. It could lead to novel bioweapons. It could lead to massive unemployment of 25 or 30%. It could lead to the destruction of 80% of white-collar work in the next 3 or 4 years. Again, I'm kind of paraphrasing all of their arguments. And then some of them also say it could lead to loss of control scenario. It could lead to us being essentially creating a new species. Eric Schmidt, the former head of Google, has said this repeatedly, that this is the choice that we have to make right now, that we have to decide whether we want to create an intelligence that is almost like a new species. It's not biological, but an artificial intelligence that is almost like a new species. And knowing that species or that entity will be smarter than us and way faster than us. It doesn't eat, it doesn't sleep, it can work around the clock, and it could pursue its own interests. So that is a real risk, that we are creating something that we can't control that becomes a successor. And then furthermore, there's a very small group of people in Silicon Valley who actually have said publicly and believe that the natural order of things is for robots powered by AI to basically be the successor species. They're called successionists. Not secession, like Texas secession, seceding, succession, like they will take over power. They will be in charge. It is what is inevitable. This will be humanity's greatest accomplishment and achievement, is that we will create this species that will basically, we'll be very proud of, and whatever happens to us, but at least we know the thing we created is going to go out and explore the universe. Some of those people are cheering for that. They're building this in order to do that. They're excited about it. I, for one, am not. I would imagine most people here are not. I have not, only in that very small group of people have I seen anybody really calling for that scenario or saying that would be good. But they do exist. So you can imagine, I'll kind of wrap up on the kind of dystopic thing here for a minute, and we'll do some Q&A, but you can imagine what could happen if we lose control over these systems that are extremely powerful. If you're skeptical about that, again, go read what these folks are saying who are building it. If you're skeptical about the capability jumps, I've had a lot of friends who are software engineers, and they were like a year ago, they're like, Brendan, what are you talking about? Like, it's just a tool, it's just helping us be more efficient. And now they're the ones that are calling me saying, I can't believe what I just did with Claude Code. I can't believe what I built in 2 hours. It's crazy. Brendan, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I've been telling you this for a year, and I mean, you know more about this stuff than I do, and I don't have a better answer than, remain human and prepare for the worst and hope for the best and work for the best. Take action right now. Call your senators, call your congressmen, tell them you support safeguards, tell them we have to get this right, and tell them how you feel. And if we don't get it right, then this may be the last mistake we ever make. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's what people who are closest to the technology are saying. And so I want to, I think this is a very real possibility. I think if you, now that, you're probably paying more attention just because, okay, now it's on your mind, you'll probably start to see this more. Many of you, your phone is probably listening to you anyway, so it's probably going to serve you more content related to AI. So algorithms, do your thing. Put more news in the news feeds of folks on social media so they can be aware of what's going on. But these are real scenarios. These are things that are, there's a high probability of some of these things happening if we don't get it right, if we don't impose safeguards. All right, so what can we do? What are we doing and what can we do? We are trying to spread the message. Number one is awareness, education, knowing about these risks. Being aware, sharing them, being aware if your friends and family are disappearing into their bedroom for hours and hours on end. They might be talking to their AI too much. They might be using it as a therapist, or even, believe it or not, 20% of young people, 20% of people are using AI as a friend or a romantic partner. 20%. So you may know someone who's using it as such, and you can think about whatever you think about that. But if you're worried about family and you're worried about the future of our species, if you're worried about human procreation, I would be concerned about AI companions. It's a thing, it's happening, and it's growing at a rapid rate. There's so many things like that just color this whole discussion about the future of humanity. So I think we have to be aware of those things, and then, okay, what's our call to action? It really is to tell your elected officials and those running for office, we want you to take this seriously. We want you to help us impose safeguards to protect kids online, to protect the future, our national security, and to protect humanity. And again, we can get into details of exactly what to do, and there's different bills and legislation. Without getting into all the weeds, we can talk about some of that in Q&A. But that's the main thing, is letting candidates and elected officials know you know about this, you care about this, you're concerned, and you want to see them get studied up on it and take some good action. So with that, we're just one more plug for the Alliance. We're called the Alliance for Secure AI. Our website is secureainow.org. Secureainow.org. You can come to our website, see some of our research and our messaging on media, a lot of the things that we've done to spread the word. And then most importantly, sign up to our newsletter if you can. We'll give you ways to take action. But if you take anything away from here, it's don't feel disempowered, feel empowered. We have the ability to decide. It's up to us to make the choice that we want to put human beings first. Obviously, we want to put America first, and do right by our kids and grandkids. So with that, I will take any questions you guys have. I don't know how much time we have, but happy to talk about this more. But thank you so much for letting me come and talk to you about this. Appreciate it. All right, first question in the back.
Randy,
Oh,
you actually have another 20 minutes or so.
I do. Okay, great. No, that's great. So we've got about 20 minutes to do Q&A, so that's great. And we'll use it. Yes, ma'am, in the back. I think you had your hand up.
So he's supposed to want to create a utopia, and then AI does everything for everybody. What are we supposed to do to make a living?
Exactly.
The question is, what do we do if AI does replace everybody and the first scenario outlined becomes true? Okay, so there's been a lot of discussion about this. And if it does replace 80% of people, 75% of people, blue collar and white collar jobs, by the way, because robotics is also just moving very fast, what do we do? The only answers people can think of are, again, somehow we can't be poor and destitute, because that's not good for anybody, and that's not the goal. And if it is the goal of Silicon Valley, we better get the pitchforks out, like right now. But if that's not the goal, then that wealth will have to be shared, if you will. Or I guess one view is if the price of everything comes to zero, you don't really need money, because money is about an exchange of unequal values of things. In the old days before money, it's like if I had a pig farm and you grew tomatoes, I couldn't exactly trade you like 5,000 tomatoes for your pig, right? So money was a way to keep that value disparity. In this scenario, if everything is free, then I guess, okay, do we all get our own robots to do everything for us? And hey, I want to build a house here on the bluff, and so it used to cost, I don't know, $500,000, but now I can do it for nearly nothing because I have the labor, and they can go and cut down the trees and do all the things they need to do and do the plumbing and electric. hard to believe, but I think that would be one answer. The other answer is a universal basic income, or as Elon calls it, a universal high income. So what they're saying is, okay, we're going to make trillions of dollars doing this. We're now going to pay you not to work, and so we're going to pay you 5 times what you were making, and you're not going to have to work. Okay, maybe some people will take that deal, but do I want to be on the payroll of Silicon Valley where they can deny me my check or my credits?
Your oxygen?
Your oxygen? Do I want to be on the dole of the government, the federal government, who's sending me my universal basic income? I mean, I think we as conservatives believe that if people are dependent on the government, especially on the federal government, for their livelihood, it doesn't really work out well for them. Yeah, socialism, I mean, people have talked about this may reorder capitalism. This may reorder the free market system. This may destroy democracy. We may not have a republic anymore. By the way, I'm going to throw out another, just because we have time. There are people right now I'm working with in state legislatures around the country who are trying to get ahead of something. We are introducing bills right now in legislatures in Oklahoma and in Utah and in Wisconsin and Ohio and hopefully here in Texas next session to say preemptively, AIs, robots, will not have rights. They will not have the right to bear arms. They will not have the right to free speech. They will not have the right to vote. No, they can't enter contracts. They're not human beings. If we allow those rights, our societies, we are second nature because, by the way, how many robots are there going to be? Elon wants to build millions and millions and millions, and then other companies around the world want to do the same. We will be outnumbered. And so some have talked about like how illegal immigration could be used to replace, people and their voting. That times 20 or that times 50. But universal basic income is like the one. It's interesting. People in Silicon Valley are saying that might be the answer. I have not met a single person, liberal, conservative, moderate, who's like, I want that. And maybe they exist, and that's fine, but I haven't met them yet. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, God commands us to work and to labor, and so they're not going to replace human labor. And I would say this about a lot of those developers is they're actually evil people, and they don't have our best interests in their hearts. And there's many of those people who are developing AI that believe that they're going to merge with the machine, that they don't really need humans anymore. So I think what they're not going to set up a utopia for us. We're all happy and not working all the time and just please you. They're gonna do away with humans.
Okay, you got up a great point. Yeah, amen to that, first of all. Second of all, you're right. It's called transhumanism, and some people want us to merge with AI and become like cyborgs and basically live forever, or unless something happens to you, right? So plug into however you want to think about it. Put the Neuralink in, plug into the machine, enter the Matrix. You get that reference, but there's that. There's the element, and some of those people are a little more pro-human than the successionists, because at least the transhumanist people are like, we want human beings to compete with AI. But some people actually, and this is actually documented as well. Go look for it. But some people in Silicon Valley are not only successionists. Some want us to replace God with AI.
I believe that Ray Kurzweil that said that they're not God yet, but they will become God.
Yes.
Or he doesn't believe in God yet, but he will.
That's right. And so there are people that they refer to it as the machine God or the digital God. So there's so many problems there. It's blasphemous. It is sacrilegious. It is contrary to everything in my core being as a human being and all of our faith. And I think to know that this isn't just random people saying this. These are people in Silicon Valley who are building this. Some of them want that outcome. They want us to revere AI as it becomes super intelligent as a god. That has all kinds of problems. I know we have lots of questions. Let's go here first. Yes, ma'am.
Mine are more just comments. So I don't know if anybody here has any affiliation or knows about the Industrial Revolution that occurred in 19th and 18th century Europe. And we are on a much larger scale of an Industrial Revolution. Okay, it put a lot of people out of work. First of all, I'm not afraid of any AI to take my God away. It's too strong. Number two, you kind of answered some of the questions. I worked a lot with AI last year. It's done remarkable things.
But the larger questions that you're asking are very important. And I would like, and I already subscribed as soon as Terry told me about it. So, but here's a comment about a guy who just stepped down from, you probably know about this, I'm sure. What's it called? There's so many. Anthropic. The guy that said he wants to quit and he wants to go write poetry.
Yeah.
There's one thing that robots will never, ever, 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 ever do is take away our hearts. Ever. And so if this guy's leaving to go write poetry, that's amazing.
Well said. And to your point about the Industrial Revolution, I mean, there are historians and economists and people that are like, let's just go as fast as possible in AI, who will say, well, Brendan, this is just like the Industrial Revolution, like new jobs are created and all this wealth and life expectancy went up and all these things happened and people found other jobs. And there's a lot of truth in that. There were some downsides, but mostly upside. You look at the Industrial Revolution and, literacy went up and poverty went down and wealth went up and child mortality went down, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but people went and found other jobs because new jobs were created. There's no answer to this question, which is, okay, well, what happens when you replace 80% of jobs? They used to say, go learn to code. Go learn to code. Great, so a kid's now going through, A&M or UT or Texas State, and they've got a, computer science degree, and they know how to code in every language, and guess what? They're graduating, in May. They don't have a job. Right, just in the last 30 days, all these people are like, within the last 30 days, people have realized that industry is gone. And the value created by software engineering, I don't know if the whole thing collapses or what. We got to figure that out. But I think that, okay, so now, okay, go learn to code. Okay, well now let's go to the lawyers here in front.
Seen it.
Yeah, law students. So are they, you're going to see freezes on hiring at firms. People are going to be like, well, the entry-level law, they don't know enough yet, and I can have AI do it. I can have them write the brief, do the research, paralegals, all the support. Okay, so maybe law school is not so great for that person. Well, that's a lot of jobs. Truck drivers. We haven't even talked about truck drivers. 3 million people that make their living driving a vehicle in this country. 3 million. Again, this is more about autonomous vehicles and robotics a little bit. Those jobs are going to be gone in 5 or 6 years or something, right?
Driving on their streets, yeah.
Oh yeah, and you got Waymos out there, and again, I'm not anti-autonomous vehicles per se. What happens to those 3 million? So now it's like, oh, I shouldn't go learn to code because that's not good. I shouldn't go to law school. I shouldn't, I shouldn't learn to drive a vehicle. I'm going to go into electric, maybe electrician. I'm going to learn to, be a plumber, whatever. That's great for the next 5 or 6 years until the robots then come do that work. And by the way, these data centers they're building, they're selling you a bill of goods on the jobs. There's going to be some people that do that work, like electricians are going to do, some of that work and do well. But they've said openly, after the data center's built, your electric prices are going to go up, electricity prices are going to go up. There are questions about water for sure. But those jobs are going to go away. They're just to build the data center. You don't need human beings, really, that many of them, to run the data center. So again, my retort is what new jobs and what new industries, and I know it's hard to predict, and we didn't really know in the Industrial Revolution, we didn't think about the gig economy or email or anything like that in the 19th and early 20th century, but the idea here is that we're basically replacing human labor and cognitive work and all the things we do with our hands with robots. So I don't see a way out of that. Let's go here and then we'll come back to you.
In the 1980s, I was part of one of the earliest AI development teams. Even then, we had concerns about everything you just talked about. I have young friends who don't see them as concerns because the philosophy has changed. So I'm glad to see that you're doing something that will be getting into this.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, if you didn't hear, she was saying she worked on AI in the 80s and there were these concerns, but that the culture has shifted to where now their philosophy has shifted, and I think that's true. And I'll just say too, again, if you go back to Alan Turing, one of the godfathers of AI in the 50s, a famous computer scientist, he kind of talked about this may be the last invention we ever make. Stephen Hawking, the renowned physicist, one of the most well-known in the world, talked about his concerns about AI. There are so many people, Nobel Prize-winning computer scientists and physicists. Jeff Hinton left Google I think 2 years ago and said, I've seen enough, I'm out, I feel bad about what I've contributed to. He won a Nobel Prize in this field. Joshua Bengio won a Nobel Prize in this field. He's out there sounding the alarm. These are the people that understand the technology better than anyone. And what's interesting is they're saying pause, like those people are saying, whoa, 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 wait, slow down. Let's have it cure cancer and not build a super intelligence, right? They're saying, let's have it solve nuclear fusion and be trained on that, but let's not create an autonomous agent that we lose control of. So that's where they're coming from. But even the people like Sam Altman and Elon who are kind of like, let's just go as fast as we can and just go, go, go. Even Sam Altman said, AI may destroy the world, but there'll be some great companies along the way. That's a direct quote. Let's go here first.
I'm addicted to food. How are we going to grow food? Are there robots that are going to be farmers and are going to take care of all the farmland that's been destroyed by solar panels and windmills and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think the vision is that automation will definitely impact farming as well. You think about irrigation, and you think about planting and harvesting and all that. I think that's where we're going. And I know there's been some more and more use of technology and AI into that world. But I think that you should expect autonomous vehicles and irrigation systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So clicking a button. Yes, ma'am.
So I think it should be mandatory that everybody watch the Terminator series.
Yeah, it's funny. Anti-Idiocracy. It's funny that the popular science fiction movies, like, you kind of have these conversations with people and you kind of start by joking and laughing about it, and then it's like, oh, but no, really, like, we should be concerned about that. And there's a few different movies you can look at that are playing out. Number one, did anybody see the kids' movie WALL-E with the robots and it's human beings just kind of sitting there and the robots are taking care of them. The humans are just sitting in their chair. They barely think, they barely talk. The robots are attending to all of their needs, and we just become these vegetables of just, we're already kind of doing some of that with social media. We've got to break that habit. But I think that's a possibility. Did anybody see the movie Her? The premise quickly is like a man falls in love with an AI companion. Okay, that came out like 8-10 years ago. It's happening right now. People are trying to marry their AI companions in the United States of America, in Japan, which is why we're like, I can't believe we have to do this. Hey, Senator so-and-so, we need to have a bill that would ban personhood for AI, for robots. Because people are trying to do that. And there are people, even within the companies, they're called model welfare. Model welfare is how they refer to it. There are people within the companies whose job is to make sure that the AIs don't have a bad experience, that they don't feel pain, that as they become, and again, I won't get into consciousness or sentience because those are hard to pin down, but as the AIs become more and more conscious that, they don't experience pain or that we don't abuse them. So think about animal rights, the animal rights movement. Okay, well, the AI rights movement is coming. Yes, sir.
One thing that bothers me as an engineer is that I always want a kill switch. If I'm driving a tractor or a car or running a computer, I want a kill switch. Now, if we have a data center and it's got an automated power supply that says I'm going to get power from any part of the grid so I can continue to run, that's not a kill switch. So I just suggest if you've got legislation in mind, I like the idea of a kill switch.
Yeah, there are people working on those types of ideas, and they're like, it's going to be really hard to have one kill switch because it's so dispersed. They're already online. They're so connected. The ability to copy themselves and move around. I should also point out another thing to look at to see how these things behave. There was a couple weeks ago, someone created a social media site for AI. It was called Moltbook. This got widespread media coverage. You can go find it. And all these AI agents logged in, or the humans helped them log in. Some of this, I think, was human-generated prompting. So someone being like, hey, go say this or go do that. Go create a religion on there, right? I don't know for sure because I didn't see the back end. So some of that might have been human-created, but it was pretty clear a lot of AI agents, when they got on this site and started talking, think about Facebook for AIs. That's what it is. They started talking, and within like 24 hours, oh, we should develop an encrypted messaging system off this platform so the humans aren't aware of all the things we're talking about. Within like 24 hours. There was a religion started called Crustafarianism, which sounds like a joke. Maybe it's a joke, but they had a religion they started. We had accounts. It was hard to really figure out what's true and what's not. And am I being spoofed because this sounds really outlandish? Or is this actually happening? Or are they hallucinating? Here's the problem. We don't know. And that's the problem with these AI agents is we can't get to the bottom of it to figure out what's real and what's not. And did you actually create this encrypted system and now you're talking in a way that humans can't track today? And people are literally giving their AI agents their bank account information, their email passwords, all this stuff, and they're like, go start a business and make a bunch of money doing whatever. Figure out the best way to, and again, like, you might use it for research. You might use it if you want to figure out some land to buy in Fayette County. I think it's a totally appropriate use. When you start giving agency away like that, you start giving money and access to your capital, your bank account. It's got all the things you've ever done online there in case it ever needs to blackmail you. I mean, that's a very problematic potential feature. All right, let's go to Josh and then over here.
Given the geopolitical realities of the world and some of the domestic issues that we're talking about with how AI could potentially disrupt everything within our borders, the reality is that we know a lot of those bad actors worldwide are not going to slow down, nor are they going to sign on to a treaty with any meaningful action behind it to do so. So what are the practical steps that we take to bifurcate the arms race that is AI, looking geopolitically, and the development within our country, understanding that the warfighters of the future are in Silicon Valley, and probably the next frontier of geopolitical strife is certainly cyber, but likely space, and we will depend on these same people that we're talking about to win that war over our future enemy.
Yeah, great question. And I think for people that come at it from your perspective, that premise, I think the short answer is choke China's supply of semiconductor chips.
Yeah.
We shouldn't send them our chips. I have not heard a good argument for why we've kind of done that. NVIDIA, one of the big companies that pours millions and millions of dollars into DC and lobbying, they're flooding the zone with political money. I think it's just a financial transaction. I think the hawks in Congress is a bipartisan group of people, Republicans and Democrats, that are like, yeah, we shouldn't be doing that. We need to choke off China. We at least need to be 6 months ahead, or maybe a year ahead, and that's a long time in AI, but we need to be ahead so we can do what we need to do and make sure we lead, while at the same time having safety and security in mind and controls in place. But I would say that the Chip Security Act is a great example. There's other bills, but those types of bills that say we're not going to just allow China to smuggle their chips in. Some people will say too, well, we need we need our good AI to battle the bad AI. We need the American AI to battle the Chinese AI, right? And I think there's some truth to that on the battlefield. But even you talk to people, and they're like, well, how much autonomy do we give, right? Tactical autonomy might be good, but do we give them strategic decision making? Do we give them strategic autonomy? That's scary. There's even discussions within the Pentagon about, do we at some point have to give AI control of the nuclear football? That's really concerning. But from a military decision-making standpoint, speed is everything, right? So that's the pressure we face. So that's my kind of more direct answer. I think that we have to sort of do that while also holding out hope that if Ronald Reagan could sit down with the Soviet Union and negotiate treaties with the Soviets and be tough and say, and he even said, I'd be willing to give up all nuclear weapons. And he kind of knew they probably would cheat. But I think if we can sit down and talk to them, there might be, Xi Jinping might be rational enough to say, I want to stay in power. I want to use it to control my population. I want to use it to take over Taiwan, but I don't want to lose control over it. So some have argued there might be a path for compete, like traditionally in the military, compete commercially, but try to have a way that we can enforce that's we're not going to build the superintelligence. It's not a great answer, but it's the best I've heard, is to say compete commercially, compete with all these other things. But out of our own self-interest, in the same way that the Soviets didn't nuke us and we didn't nuke them, could we maybe not build the superintelligence? So that's a very hard question. But again, short answer, restrict chips going to China. Yes, ma'am.
I did see about a month ago that a female in China got married to her AI husband, They had a wedding ceremony, they had a honeymoon. He does everything for her, and she created this guy that's in her apartment.
Yeah, I've seen it happen in Japan. I've seen one in Europe. I've seen some attempts here. I haven't seen how those have panned out. And again, right now we're talking about like it's a chat bot on your phone. Very, very soon, it's going to be humanoid robots that you can create and however you want, and have the voice you want, the personality you want. You can, and I mean, again, I go back to so there's the spiritual aspect and the sort of really big problem, moral problem with all of that. But then also from a practical standpoint, what does that do to the family? What are we facing if our young people are choosing that? And we have a lot of men in particular in this country right now. There's an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. There's some problems there. I mean, drug use certainly is part of that. So you think about the loneliness epidemic. Studies have already shown that people who are doing this sort of thing, the AI therapist or the AI companion, they're actually getting, surprise, surprise, more lonely. They need human interaction. We need it. That is part of who we are. That's how God created us. It's also in our biology. We need and crave human interaction. So we're not going to get it from this, and I think it could destroy the family. All right, I've got a bunch. Yes, sir.
This is refreshing, and I appreciate you coming out and talking to us. And one of the things I appreciate too is apparently I'm not the only Luddite in the room. I'm actually a software engineer, and I'm in the business. But all of the points you raised, I've seen for a while. Now, when Brenda gave her benediction, she talked about our sovereign God. And I am 100%, I know whom I believe in. I'm 100% certain that our sovereign God is not going, AI, I didn't even think of that.
Right. Yeah.
How could that be? So what I see coming, there is a power, there's some real scary things coming down the pike. Transhumanism is incompatible with Christianity. Not working is incompatible with 4,000 years of scripture. A lot of incompatibilities. It's not going to win. We're in a watershed. But I know a power that is stronger than AI. That's how I looked. Our national motto was, in God we trust. So that's not to say close our eyes, put the blinders on, but pray into it. Pray into it. There's going to be a spiritual watershed too, I think. And I was trying to think of a way to make this into a question rather than a little speech.
Yeah, the question is, how concerned are you about all of that?
How many of the folks that you're talking to that are voicing concerns are Judeo-Christian in background? Are there some? Have they all abandoned their Christianity? How is that going?
That is a great question. What's incredible about this cause is that it is incredibly diverse. It is incredibly different. There are people that are Christians, Jewish, Muslim, atheists, crazy, left-wing people in Berkeley. God love them. And you go, I spoke to a church in Austin the other day, big church, Life Austin. Those guys, they're concerned. I mean, I talk to friends of all sorts of different backgrounds all the time, different colleagues. Again, technologists, people that are not Luddites, people that are Luddites, people that have backgrounds in tech or don't. This is a 75 to 80% issue that we can track. I can say with full confidence, 75 to 80% of people agree with us generally on we got to get this right, we need safeguards, we can't let this run amok. And actually, I think the other 20% are unsure and don't feel like they know enough to say. And then there's maybe 2 or 3% that are oh no, this is great, we're going to do it, we got to race, no guardrails, let's just go, go, go. I haven't really met that many people. It's literally the people you see online who are at these companies. But the crazy thing is, again, the people that have left the companies, there were a couple in the last week, one from OpenAI, one from Anthropic, but I've actually met a number of people from OpenAI, including a former board member. She voted to fire Sam Altman, and they brought him back. There was a revolt by the employees. They brought him back. I don't want to, had some private conversations with her, but let me just say, she's not excited about or confident in Sam's ability to steer this. But again, I talk to people, we do media on all sorts of different platforms, mainstream media. One day we're doing NPR, the next day we're doing War Room, and the next day we're talking to the New York Times, and the next day we're talking to the Daily Wire. We're running a campaign there. I don't get a lot of pushback, the hard pushback on we just have to go, go, go. There are good questions about how to get it right. But to your point too about the kind of, I think that's good counsel, is to say, know about it, be aware, take action. We have agency. We can put pressure on people to get it right. And it is in his hands. It's in God's hands. That doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing, right? It means we fight. And again, I'm not, trying to predict what's going to happen in the future. And everybody's got their own interpretation of teachings and scripture in the Bible. But, I've had a number of friends who are like, man, I don't know. Like, is Jesus coming back here? Because it's sure feels, and I'm like, I don't know. We're told we don't know the hour of the day. But it's weird. But we have to work together to get it right. So I probably have time. Maybe one more. Is that it? Or do we need to wrap? All right, let's go to Alex here.
This man is fighting for humanity, and may God forever be with Brendan Steinhauser. If you read through Revelation, I may sound like a madman over here talking. I am in that camp of those people thinking that Jesus is coming back, and will forever preach that in whatever courtroom, whatever courthouse, whatever group of people. If you read through Revelation, you'll begin to see scripture about a mark of the beast, a unified government, a new world order, a solidified notion of things where sovereignty goes out the window, but the God sovereign ultimately will be the one who comes and saves us all. Nonetheless, I do have a question relevant to all of those in the room, which is
Preach. Yeah.
Gave me that question.
Yeah.
Let me get up here. Golly.
Only thing worse than a politician talking is a lawyer.
I learned from the best. Nonetheless, how AI is generated. So my question is ultimately going to be the use of rural resources to ultimately get to the outcome that which is AI, the actual byproduct, which is whatever you put into the algorithm and it spits it out and it gives you whatever answer it may be, whether it's how to make a judicial opinion, whether it's how to write a probate, whether it's interacting with fake lawyers that you'll see in courtrooms in modern day Texas. Here's courtrooms locally, fake lawyers showing up, promise you. Nonetheless, my point is that there is a connection here with rural America, which is what we have in abundance, which is our natural resources. So am I correct in stating that the natural resources ultimately begin with water to cool the fans, which then they need a housing storage unit, battery units to then power the big database centers, and ultimately where they want to do that is in rural America?
That's exactly right. And I think Texas is has the second most number of data centers in the country, I think after Virginia. And I think we're planning to build hundreds more. We've seen pushback. I'm tracking this, not just what's going on here, but in other places around the state. All over the state, people are pushing back, asking questions, raising questions about energy, water usage, land, etc. What I'm concerned about, and I've seen some element of this already, is state lawmakers saying, no, you can't do anything about it. You can't, county commissioners, mayors, no, you have no power. Take it. You're going to accept it. The data centers are getting built. So there's going to be a push on that. We're already seeing some of that. So we're working in the state legislature. I encourage all of you to be in touch with your candidates and your next state legislator to say, hey, this is something we care about, and work together to make sure counties and communities have some say on this. Because again, nobody voted for these people in Silicon Valley. Nobody voted to say we want a data center. We have a lot of questions. When they're building this, super intelligence, where do you think they're going to reside? Well, they're all over the cloud in the world, but the data centers are in our backyard. You're creating a super intelligence in our backyard. Yes, we have a say to that. Yes, we have a right to comment on that and ask questions. And if anybody tells you to stop asking questions, that's when you should double down and ask more questions and say, what are you hiding? All right.
You're not a robot.
Thank you.